Hades Horror Files.
I used to work the night shift at a funeral home. That sentence alone usually gets people interested, but honestly, the job wasn't nearly as creepy as you'd think. Most nights were quiet, too quiet. I worked at a small funeral home just outside a rural town in southern Illinois. The building was old, like really old, with creaking floors, faded wallpaper, and long, narrow hallways that always smelled faintly of flowers and bleach. My shift started at 7 p.m. and ended around 5 in the morning. Most of my job involved paperwork, cleaning, and occasionally helping move bodies if a late arrival came in. Nothing paranormal ever happened there. At least, not until the Ouija board. The weird thing is, the board didn't even belong to me. It belonged to my coworker, Nate. Nate was 26, loud, immature, and obsessed with anything creepy. Horror movies, ghost hunting videos, cursed objects. If it looked haunted, he bought it. One night around Halloween, he came into work carrying this old wooden box under his arm with the biggest grin on his face. "You're gonna love this," he said. Inside the box was a Ouija board. Not one of those cheap cardboard ones either. This thing looked handmade, dark wood, carved letters, burn marks around the edges. The planchette looked older than the board itself. I remember touching it and immediately pulling my hand back because it felt freezing cold. Not cool. Cold. Like metal left outside during winter. "Where'd you get this?" I asked. Nate smiled. "Estate sale." That should have been the first red flag. Apparently the owner had died recently, and the family was selling everything from the house. Nate said he found the board hidden in the attic, wrapped in black cloth. And because he had absolutely no survival instincts whatsoever, he bought it. Around midnight, things slowed down. No calls, no visitors, no bodies arriving. Just me and Nate sitting in the break room listening to rain hit the windows. That's when he suggested using the board, inside the funeral home, at night. Right down the hall from the viewing rooms, I laughed immediately. No chance. But Nate kept pushing. "Come on, man, think about where we are." Exactly, I thought. Think about where we are. Eventually, boredom won. That's the dangerous thing about late nights. Your brain gets sluggish, common sense weakens, so we carried the board into viewing room B. I hated that room already, even before everything happened. It was the oldest viewing room in the building, with faded red carpet and heavy curtains that blocked out almost all outside light. The air always felt colder in there, too. Nate set the board on a table between us and lit 2 candles. I remember joking, "If something kills us, I'm haunting you specifically." He laughed. Then we placed our fingers on the planchette. At first, nothing happened. Nate asked the usual dumb questions. "Is anyone here? Any spirits want to talk? What's your name?" Nothing. I relaxed a little. Then Nate asked, "Did anyone here die in this room?" The planchette moved instantly. Yes. Both of us froze. I stared at him. "You pushing it?" No. For the first time all night, he actually looked nervous. I swallowed hard. "Okay, who are we speaking to?" The planchette moved slowly. E-D-I-T-H. Edith. Nate read quietly. The candles flickered. A cold draft moved through the room even though every window was closed. Nate leaned forward. "How old are you? Do you like it here?" "No." "Why are you still here?" The planchette stopped moving. Then suddenly it slid violently across the board. "Not alone." I felt my stomach drop. Nate forced a laugh. "All right, that's creepy." I wanted to stop right there. Seriously, every instinct told me to end it. But before I could say anything, the lights in the viewing room dimmed. Not flickered. Dimmed. Like the power was draining slowly. The temperature dropped hard. I could suddenly see my breath. Then came a noise from the hallway outside. A wheelchair squeaking, slowly rolling. Neither of us moved. The funeral home didn't even use wheelchairs anymore. The squeaking continued. Closer. Squeak! 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 Stopping right outside the viewing room door. Nate whispered, "Did someone come in?" I shook my head immediately. The front doors were locked. We were alone. Then the doorknob slowly turned, not rattling, turning, like someone carefully trying to enter. The door creaked open a few inches. Darkness waited outside. Nothing else. No person, no sound. But freezing air poured into the room. Nate stood up immediately. "Okay, screw this." The moment he took his fingers off the planchette, the board scraped loudly against the table. The planchette moved by itself. Fast. Goodbye. Then all the candles went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Nate cursed and turned on his phone flashlight. The beam shook badly. That's when we heard breathing. Not ours, someone else's. Slow, wet, right beside us. The flashlight swung wildly around the room. Nothing there. But the breathing continued. Then came another sound, a soft tapping, from underneath the viewing table. Tap, tap, tap. Nate backed away immediately. "Hell no!" The tapping became scratching, something dragging nails against wood. I remember every hair on my body standing up at once. Then the tablecloth shifted, just slightly, like something underneath it moved. Nate whispered, "Tell me you see that." I nodded slowly. The scratching stopped. Silence filled the room again. Then from under the table came a woman's voice, weak, cracking. "Please!" I nearly threw up right there. "Please, help me!" Nate grabbed my arm hard, because the voice sounded muffled, like someone speaking through dirt. Then the tablecloth lifted, just a little, enough for me to see fingers underneath, gray fingers, long fingernails, bending backward. The hand slowly crawled forward into the candlelight. Every joint looked wrong, like broken bones twisting under skin. Nate screamed and stumbled backward into the wall. The hand disappeared instantly under the table again. Then something slammed into the underside of the table hard enough to lift it off the ground. Bang! We ran. Neither of us said a word. We bolted into the hallway and nearly slipped on the tile floor. And that's when we saw her. At the far end of the hallway stood an old woman in a hospital gown. Thin white hair hung over her face. Her skin looked gray, wet somehow, like she'd been submerged underwater. She stood perfectly still under the emergency exit sign, watching us. Nate whispered, "Edith." The woman's head tilted slowly. Then her jaw opened. Too wide. Way too wide. I heard this horrible cracking noise as her mouth stretched unnaturally down her face, and from inside her mouth came another voice, a deeper voice, male. "He opened it!" The hallway lights exploded. Glass rained down around us. Everything went dark. Then footsteps rushed toward us. Fast. Not old person footsteps. Heavy running. We sprinted toward the front office while something chased us through the darkness. I could hear it hitting the walls. Laughing. That layered, horrible laughter. Nate reached the office first and slammed the door shut behind us. We shoved a filing cabinet against it while the thing on the other side hit the door repeatedly. Bang, bang, bang! The entire frame shook. Then silence. Complete silence. Nate whispered, "Call the cops." I grabbed my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. The funeral home landline was dead, too. Then came a voice through the door, Nate's voice. "Hey, man, open up." We both stared at each other instantly, because the real Nate was standing beside me. The voice outside laughed softly, then switched. Now it sounded like me. "Please let me in." The thing scratched slowly down the door, then stopped. A minute passed, maybe two. Nothing. Eventually, Nate whispered, "I think it left." Then we heard the elevator ding, the funeral home elevator. Slow creaking followed as it descended from the second floor. But nobody had been upstairs. The elevator doors opened somewhere down the hall, and then came dozens of footsteps. Not one person, many. Slow, shuffling footsteps approaching together. I felt cold all over. Nate looked like he was about to faint. The footsteps stopped outside the office door. And then came knocking, not aggressive, gentle. Dozens of soft knocks all at once. Tap, 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 like a crowd politely asking to enter. Then whispers started. So many whispers. Men, women, children, all speaking at once. "Let us in. We're cold." He opened it. "Please." Nate started crying. Actual tears. And honestly, I was close myself. Then one voice rose above the others. That same deep male voice from earlier. "You didn't say goodbye." The Ouija board. We left it in viewing room B. I don't know how I realized it mattered, but somehow I knew. The session wasn't closed. That sounds ridiculous now, but in that moment, it felt completely real. I told Nate we had to get back to the room. He thought I was insane. Maybe I was, but the whispers outside kept growing louder, angrier. The office lights began flickering violently. The walls shook with banging. Something was coming through that door eventually, so we ran for it. We shoved the filing cabinet aside and sprinted into the hallway. The hallway was empty, completely empty, but every viewing room door stood open now. Darkness inside each one, and as we passed them, I saw faces. People standing silently inside the rooms watching us. Pale faces, sunken eyes, some smiling, some not. We reached viewing room B. The Ouija board still sat on the table. The planchette slowly circled by itself. Nate grabbed it with shaking hands. "What do we do?" I remembered the word from earlier. Goodbye. Together, we forced the planchette onto goodbye. The second it touched the word, every light in the funeral home came back on. Instantly. The whispers stopped. The banging stopped. Silence. Normal silence. The building felt warm again. We stood there breathing hard, staring around the room. Everything looked normal. Except for one thing. Written across the dusty mirror on the wall behind us were 4 words. "He will come back open." Nate quit the next morning. Didn't even pick up his final paycheck. I stayed another 3 months before leaving too. But here's the part I've never told anyone. About a year later, I was working at a completely different job when I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was the Ouija board. And taped to the box was a note in Nate's handwriting. It only said, "I never stopped hearing them.